Meantime, calls for a demonstration today from 5:30 just up the road. Joining me is Guardian columnist Owen Jones, who's been encouraging people across the country to take to the streets tonight to protest against the proroguing of Parliament. Hello to you, Owen. What are you hoping to achieve?
To fight for democracy. It's as simple as that. Our ancestors fought with such courage and determination and resilience for our democracy. An unelected Prime Minister is shutting down Parliament. What were we told during the referendum campaign? We were told that we were going to restore parliamentary sovereignty. We were told we were taking back control of our laws. And yet this unelected Prime Minister is shutting down Parliament, which was supposed to be sovereign once again, and its ability to make legislation as we approach the greatest upheaval at any point in our history since the end of World War II. Now, we were told during that referendum campaign, by the way, I hope people join the protest however they voted in 2016. We were told by Michael Gove, as Michael Gove himself put it, one of the leaders of the Leave campaign, I've got it here, we didn't vote to leave without a deal. That wasn't the message of the campaign I helped lead. We were assured a deal would happen. We were told it would be the easiest thing imaginable. I don't think that the British people want no deal to happen. In the general election, a majority of the British people voted for parties whose manifestos explicitly ruled out no deal. But if I'm wrong, there's an easy way of doing that, not shutting Parliament down, but dissolving it and asking the British people to decide to determine the future of their government and who runs them. We can't have a situation, an assault on democracy, on our rights and freedoms our ancestors fought for, preventing the elected representatives of the British people, who were only elected 2 years ago after the referendum itself, to have a say in stopping no deal, which has no democratic mandate whatsoever, and the government knows it.
OK, so what do you want to achieve by demonstrating tonight? Because it's a done deal, isn't it?
Well, what we hope to achieve is to put pressure on the government, firstly, to call the general election. That's what we should be talking about now. We should be talking about shutting down Parliament. Look, a poll just came out today by YouGov, which showed only 27% of the British people support proroguing Parliament. Even a quarter of people who voted Leave oppose this action. This is something which is uniting people across the country, millions of people who didn't just vote Labour, but Liberal Democrat and the Conservative Party and the Scottish National Party. If the majority of the British people, as the polling shows, oppose this, if this is an unprecedented assault, I mean, look, this is what we're talking about here. What kind of country would we be if we allow an unelected Prime Minister to shut down Parliament and do nothing? Just sit at home, yell at the television set maybe, voice a bit of frustration, tut a bit loudly. We won our rights in this country, not by people sitting around whinging in the pub. We won it by people taking to the streets and indeed using peaceful civil disobedience. That's how working people won their rights. That's how women won their rights. It's how various minorities won their rights, not by sitting around resigned and thinking, well, we can't do anything. Powerful elites like unelected prime ministers can just do what they want. I think as movements in the past, which took to the streets, won our rights and freedoms, we can do the same thing to defend our rights and freedoms. And I think what we can show is they've overreached. Most people don't support this action. Most people oppose it. Most people want to defend our democracy. Look, you mentioned Matt Hancock before. He said proroguing would mean suspending parliamentary democracy. I'm just reading it here. And that goes against everything that those men who waded onto those beaches fought and died for. Now, dramatic words, but he was right. I mean, he's a supine careerist. He will now trumpet the very policy he condemned. But he was right. Our ancestors fought at great cost. They died fighting for our democracy. We don't want Bullingdon boys, a club which happily trashed restaurants, to start trashing our democracy in a similar way. Matt Hancock also said it would mean the end of the Conservative Party as a serious party of government. Amber Rudd, outrageous, we're not the Stuart Kings. She said it was the most extraordinary idea I've ever heard, a ridiculous suggestion. Even Conservative cabinets, who will now go along with it to keep their fancy limousines, to keep their pay packets, they know this is a disgraceful assault on democracy, and it is incumbent on the British people to defend the rights and freedoms that our ancestors, mine included, fought for at huge cost. All of us watching this had people who fought in the past for democracy and for their rights. And it's not for us to allow those rights to be snatched away from us by an unelected Prime Minister.
And what about those that are representing you in the Palace of Westminster behind me, they've had 3 years to make those points. They've had 3 years to try and sort out a deal, and now they're bickering about 2 or 3 days that the Prime Minister's taking off them.
Well, we're not talking about 3 or 4 days. What we could be talking about is shortening the amount of days potentially to just 4 days. We're talking about the biggest upheaval since World War II in this country. A no-deal Brexit, which, as I've said, was never put to the British people by the Leave campaigns, was ruled out by them, and which most people rejected in the general election of 2017 because they voted for parties whose manifestos ruled it out. You're right, there's a parliamentary deadlock. So what do you do in a parliamentary deadlock? You don't just shut Parliament down and act like a dictatorship. You go back to the British people and you let them decide the future instead. That's what democracy is all about. You can't have somebody who's only been elected by a few tens of thousands of Conservative members who do not represent the people of this country, doing what he wants, a privileged government that only represents the interests of the people at the top, doing it as they wish. If they wish to pursue the course of action, which the British people have never backed, never endorsed, they should go back to the British people and let them decide, not shut down Parliament. And as I've said, if they continue down this course of action, the protests tonight, we've only called them with a few hours' notice, are just the beginning, and we will use peaceful disobedience, as our ancestors used, to defend our rights and our freedoms. Democracy is in peril, and there's nothing more precious than democracy. You don't just let people interfere and shut down democracy in this country like we're some sort of banana republic. We fight back. That's what our ancestors did. And it's time for courage. It's time for determination. It's not time to be a coward. It's not time to be a wimp. It's time to stand up as our ancestors did. And that's what we're doing.
OK, good to talk to you as always, Owen. Come back soon. Thanks a lot. Glad to see you looking a bit better as well. Thank you.